Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 21st of July, another rather cold day here in Polokwane, throughout the country, I think, and it's going to get even colder still if I give any credence to the weather forecasts. But I want to pick up the story again of David as the king, but not yet the king, as he is in the desert, still hiding from King Saul, who's the king, but isn't really the king, and who will shortly stop being the king. And David, as you remember the story, gives protection, unofficially, but nevertheless gives a protection to a landowner who had sent a significant number of sheep into the desert regions. And David's men, some 600 or so, protect the shepherds and the sheep. And then when David goes to the landowner and requests some food and assistance, and it was right for him to do that in the cultural practice of the day, the landowner, Nabal, refuses him and says, who do you think you are? And David, in his anger, goes out to make war against the family, this man, Nabal. But as he is approaching the homestead, ready to attack, the wife of Nabal, a lady called Abigail, described as a very wise woman, meets David with donkey loads, multiple donkeys, all laden with food, and she apologizes to David. And you can read that in the whole 1 Samuel 25, starting at the beginning. You read the whole episode, and it's the latter half of chapter 25 of 1 Samuel, where you read about Abigail meeting David. And she gives an incredible speech where she acknowledges that what happened to David at the hands of her husband was wrong. So she doesn't sugarcoat what happened, and she doesn't try and ignore what happened. She's actually brutally honest. Does make you question whether she's a little exasperated by her husband's foolishness. In fact, she says he is just like his name, and the name Nabal means a fool. And she says he's just like his name. But she says to David, and remember, she's described as a wise woman. She's quite forthright and speaks her mind. And she says to David that although you have the right to do what you want to do and to come and kill and destroy my household, nevertheless, I suggest to you, these are my words, not hers, read them for yourself, but I suggest to you that you will have blood in your hands, and although you may have in one hand the excuse to have done what you did, perhaps on the other hand, it might be something of an overreaction. And David hears her out, and he says to her afterwards, I accept your gift, I accept your apologies, and I'm so glad that we met because you are right in what you said. And he then goes home with the donkeys laden with food. He's ultimately achieved what he had wanted to achieve, not to lord it over people, but to be able to live there in peace, and with his armed force be able to offer peace to those in the vicinity. And again, culturally, that was a perfectly acceptable thing to do. Abigail goes home and she discovers that her husband has thrown a party. Remember that shearing time is a big time of celebration, and he is thoroughly drunk, eaten too much, and it's interesting, it would appear he hasn't even missed his wife at this party. So Abigail does nothing that night. He's just too drunk to even hear what she's saying. It's not a good reflection on this Nabal character. But the following morning, when he is awake and sober, well, at least to some extent sober, she tells him what happened and how close he came to dying the very day before. And we're told that Nabal goes as again, some of my words, as white as a sheet and becomes like a stone. So incredible shock takes over, or more likely suffers a stroke. He's described as becoming like a stone. He's cold and unflinching. He can't move. He's obviously put to bed, and 10 days later, he has died. As I said, presumably of the stroke brought upon by the shock. Perhaps the hand of God involved in all of this. The kind of can I even use the words romantic side of the story, is that when David gets to hear what has happened, he knows then, of course, again, culturally, Abigail will become bereft. All of the fortune that she has and the land will be taken over by Nabal's family, and she will be left destitute. As a woman, as a wife, she will have nothing. And David, no doubt very impressed by his encounter with her, sends for her and asks if she would want to move into his household, become his wife. But my point is this, really, how important it is that we are not only kind and loving to those around us, but that we are also standing for the truth, even if it means we don't sugarcoat the faults of our family, our husbands or our wives, because we cannot say only women are wise and all men are Nabals. Some women might want to debate that, but we all must stand for the truth and not sugarcoat and not ignore the faults and the wrongs of others. We don't have to go out and seek revenge. There's no indication that that is what Abigail did. She just was brutally honest as she fought hard verbally to save her life and her family's life. And she succeeded in that. And it was other circumstances that led to Nabal dying. But the point is we must stand for the truth. And perhaps just one example in this terrible atrocities happening in the country with the looting. Those that are looters must realize that what they've done is wrong. But those of us who have means available, and we're not sharing or helping those who are poor, so we remain rich while they remain poor, does also seem to be a little wrong. And we need to be brutally honest and introspective and say, what can we do to help uplift everybody? Let us be brutally honest as we examine ourselves and our conscience, and also point fingers at those who did the looting. But remember that as we point fingers at them, we're also actually pointing fingers back at ourselves. So folks, be honest to God, and honest in your relationship with God, and honest in your relationship with other folk. Have a wonderful day. We'll chat again tomorrow. God bless.